for hospitals and healthcare facilities. Can you help us figure out how many hospitals there are in the United States, where they're located, who the decision makers are at those hospitals? And we were able to give them access to our platform. And last month, they had their biggest revenue month in history, going from a place where they had no business left to the biggest revenue month of their history, all powered by the ZoomInfo platform. And we're excited about the impact that they will play.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're eager to keep in touch with you, see how it goes. Congratulations. Hopefully you're breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief. Go have a drink. Founder, CEO of ZoomInfo.
Go home to your wife and daughter.
He's there. He's already there.
Right.
He just has to walk outside. Much more ahead, including Dave Wilson's chart of the day. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Wall Street has less than an hour to save its 4-session winning streak. So far, it doesn't look good. Prices remain modestly lower. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 100, the S&P 500 down 23, the Nasdaq falling 97. 24-Hour Fitness reportedly is in talks with potential buyers as it heads for a planned bankruptcy. The operator of over 430 gyms has been hit hard by coronavirus shutdowns. It has begun reopening some locations in Texas. A federal judge has denied Bernard Madoff's request for compassionate release from prison. Madoff says he's terminally ill. More than 500 victims of his Ponzi scheme wrote the court, nearly all saying he should remain behind bars. Nevada casinos are once again welcoming customers following a nearly 3-month coronavirus shutdown. Some casinos opened with sneeze guards around their card tables. Face masks aren't required in Nevada. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
How long? How much? How many? Financial, policy, and medical experts are working on answers 24/7.
What about public debt?
We are listening to those experts 24/7.
Is the Fed effectively widening this wealth gap with its programs?
Because you want answers too.
What's the most important? The trillions in stimulus, the economy's reopening, or the infections curve bending?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus symptoms and testing. If you have any one of the following symptoms, a high temperature, a new continuous cough, loss of taste or smell, you can now get tested. Do not leave home for any reason other than to get tested. Find out how to get a test and how long to isolate at nhs.uk/coronavirus. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Get your cock on with our stuff. Uncle Ben's Rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our butcher's selection chicken breast fillets on £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the pot? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores online, subject to availability.
You love tuning for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Where do sports, culture, and basketball nostalgia collide? On their podcast, Knuckleheads, NBA veterans Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles sit down with athletes, musicians, and entertainers to get brutally honest, totally unguarded conversations about everything from current events to untold stories from the golden era of sports. Search Knuckleheads on TuneIn to listen. Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live
to the trending section under Browse to explore the most popular stations and podcasts on TuneIn today. Millions of listeners like you can't be wrong.
Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, coming up, we're going to check in with Mr. Dave Wilson and his chart of the day. Then we're going to get you to the close of trading, yes?
It's all about, kind of what certain assets, how they're trading, what it tells you about investors' willingness to take risks.
Right, where they match up and where some of the disconnects maybe.
I like
what
the song will be.
It's a good one. We'll see.
Yeah, let it go, maybe?
If only. If only.
Oh, you know what? We got to see if we can do that. All right, we're going to get to the chart of the day in just a moment. We're digressing, so sorry. Let's get back to Charlie Pellet.
All right, here's what's going on. 28 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Stocks certainly not frozen in time here, with the S&P down 18 now, a drop now of 0.6%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 68, a drop there of 0.3. NASDAQ just about lows of the day right now, down 86 points, drop there of about 0.9%. So the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all trading lower. Stocks slumping is concerned. The recent rally has gone too far, overshadows new stimulus measures and encouraging economic data. S&P 500 index heading for its biggest drop in 2 weeks, snapping a 4-day winning streak. As for the 10-year, the yield now 0.81%, down 21.30 seconds. Gold is up 0.9%, 17.14 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.3%, 37.19 a barrel. So it is a down day on Wall Street. Now, one area of concern for medical professionals has been protests and large crowds that we have seen in recent days on whether that will drive a spike in COVID-19 cases. Dr. James Farley is a nursing professor at Johns Hopkins University.
So I think everyone who participates in the protest needs to be really vigilant about symptoms, about the onset of any kind of new fevers, coughs, shortness of breath, or anything else that could be in the COVID spectrum of illness, and report that and get testing soon so that contact tracing can begin.
He was interviewed this morning on Bloomberg Television. The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. Zoom Info Technologies, that's the business intelligence platform, soared in its U.S. trading debut today after raising $935 million in an initial public offering. Shares today are soaring by 66.6%. eBay raising its forecast for revenue and earnings. Shares up now by 6.7%. Recapping equities lower, 26 minutes to go with the S&P down 17, down 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly, Carol Masser, right here on Bloomberg Radio. Maybe a far cry from the Frozen soundtrack, but, cool. Rolling Stones.
It's perfect. I love the Stones. Yeah, mixed emotions, right? Mixed messages, I should say, when you look at different assets and how they're trading. And I'm guessing that's why Dave Wilson chose that for his chart of the day.
Well, actually, it was our producer, Paul Brennan, who suggested it, and I thought it was a perfect fit. So there you go.
Is Paul your roadie? Is that what this is about?
Yikes. Just took a turn.
I'm going to check the IB chat on the Bloomberg to see if Paul's like, what?
Somewhere in the Bronx, somebody just had a little
fell
bit
off
of
his chair.
Exactly.
Hey, whatever. I mean, I'm happy to take suggestions when they work.
You are. That was a good one. He's
whatever you were talking about the other day, Carol, I couldn't find a way to make it work. That's how it goes. But why mixed emotions works in this case, I think you've identified it. You're looking at different markets and you're getting different messages out of them. And it was something that struck me when I was going through a report from the quantitative research team over at Citigroup. And they were making a comparison between gold, the dollar, and U.S. stocks. I mean, just look at the distinctions you can make in terms of performance. Gold tends to do well when people are relatively concerned about where things are headed. And you certainly had a lot of reason for that this year with the coronavirus pandemic and the resulting economic plunge. So you looked at gold futures in New York, a city that you saw they were up 12% for the year through yesterday. So, okay, investors are a little concerned right now, right? Well, then you go to the dollar and you see, they used the dollar index. They could have used the Bloomberg dollar index just as well. And, down from a high in March. In the case of the dollar index, lower by 5.5% through yesterday. And then you consider what's gone on with the S&P 500, which closed yesterday up almost 40% from its low of 50 days ago, basically. And that was the biggest increase, as I mentioned earlier on, that we've seen over that time period, since the current index, the 500 stock version, was introduced back in 1957. So, Citigroup putting all this together concludes, and I'm quoting here, risk aversion is not as high as recent moves in gold would suggest. So there you have it. Mixed messages out of the markets. If you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
Beatles or Stones, Dave?
Beatles, I think.
Yeah.
Beatles for me, too.
Yeah, although...
In case you were including the girl in the conversation.
I was directing that toward Dave, then I was going to ask you, Carol.
Jason Kelly, what are you, Beatles or Stones?
I'm Beatles. I'm definitely Beatles. I mean, I like the Stones. I definitely like the Stones, but I do I do subscribe to the overall theory, and I wonder if you do too, Dave, and you too, Carol. You really do. Like, you are one or the other. I don't buy when people are like, well, I like them both.
Yeah, no, I actually think you're one or the other, like big time, like all in.
I appreciate the Stones, but just think what the Beatles did in terms of moving music forward.
Yes.
Much more experimental, everything from, just the basic string quartet or whatever to, some of the more complicated Indian sitar rhythms.
Totally.
And you name it.
Yeah. Well, and the idea of like really changing how you think about an album and what it can be as a whole and individual pieces and the various musicians and their ability to be individual musicians. And I do think, those who defend the Stones would say, well, you have to look at the various musicians there. But I feel like the talent across the Beatles also helped sort of secure their legacy.
But Dave, I think you make a great point that, they just kept embracing, changes in music constantly, and you could see the sound evolve over their different, albums, and each of them brought in different things. And that's pretty cool to see them, that evolution.
And of course, you have to bear in mind, too, that the Stones have managed to survive this long, and the Beatles were here and gone in the space of about 8 years, basically, when you look at their recording career.
That's true, too.
Exactly. So then when you can make the case that you could use that to make the case either way to some extent, because the longevity of the Stones is absolutely remarkable, to say the least. All right, Dave Wilson, we'll talk with you in about 20 minutes or so for your stock of the day. In the meantime, we're counting down to the close of trading. It certainly has been a mixed day, tending toward the negative. So we'll see how it all finishes up. In the meantime, let's get down to Washington and Nancy Lyons. Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Jason. George Floyd's brother says he was the general in the neighborhood that everyone wanted to follow. He spoke today at the first of many planned memorial services for George Floyd. This one was being held in Minneapolis. Attorney Benjamin Crump represents the family.
What we endeavor to achieve is equal justice for the United States of America, and George Floyd is the moment that gives us the best opportunity I have seen in a long time of reaching that high ideal that this country was founded on.
Attorney General William Barr says the U.S. is currently facing two serious challenges to the rule of law: the brutality that led to George Floyd's death and those who have hijacked protests to engage in lawlessness. Today, he promised justice in the Floyd case.
The day is coming soon, I am confident, when justice will be served. George Floyd's death was not the first of its kind, and it exposes concerns that reach far beyond this particular case.
Barr today, though, did not answer questions about his role in the clearing of peaceful protesters to make way for President Trump to visit a damaged church across from the White House. The majority of U.S. public school districts need to make major building repairs in at least half their schools, yet many districts are unable to pay for any updates or have had to direct those funds to increase school security for possible shootings. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. NJIT faculty mentored Christoph Camacho when he was a student, helping him co-found a startup and patent a device that uses drone technology for reforestation and to collect valuable data for land management.
I founded Paratrees back in 2016, taking what I learned from my research at NJIT and migrating it to a startup. Our technology is to really enhance land management operations, so we work very closely with land management companies. So we have a drone that performs precision reforestation, and we do storm damage assessment, having access to drones that can collect data so it's much faster. And what is more important, we help them drive management decisions. NJIT has been there every step of the way, going full force with my company.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at seic.com/seize change.
With COVID-19, so much is unknown.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Hi, I'm Dan from NatWest Manchester branch. We know life's hard right now, but if coronavirus has affected your finances, we're doing our best to make things easier. If you're a personal customer, you can request a 3-month payment break if you're struggling with your mortgage, loan or credit card. Or if you need help with an existing arranged overdraft, you could get £500 interest-free for 3 months. Remember, every one of us is here to support you. There are lots of ways we could help. Search NatWest Coronavirus.
Eligibility and conditions apply to payment breaks. Overdraft up to your agreed limit if lower than £500.
Who says you can't have a laugh while getting serious about America's pastime? On the daily podcast Locked On MLB, comedian and baseball fanatic Paul Francis Sullivan talks about each team, each pennant race, and everything else in the game, from rule changes and controversies to baseball cards and stadium food.
For those of you who are not familiar with me or the old show, I love to obsess over baseball. I'm talking baseball over the Super Bowl. We had a TV showing the division series during my wedding.
Search Locked On MLB on TuneIn to listen today.
Did you know that with TuneIn's local radio feature, you can stream live FM and AM stations broadcasting in your area? Discover local news, talk, and music stations. Navigate to the local radio section under Browse to listen locally on TuneIn.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
Are you ready for the realest first-hand take of what's happening in the NBA? On their podcast, All the Smoke, former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson bring their fiery intensity to the mic, dishing on the latest news and drama from on and off the court without boundaries.
Half man, half amazing. My friend, our brother, Vince Carter, man. Welcome to the show.
Yo, what's up, man? What's up, my brother? Man,
Search All the Smoke on TuneIn to listen.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
While he was gone, Al had some kind of vote to make him the managing. You remember, he used to come up all the time in the Raiders game that he was the managing general partner. By the way, don't forget, there was a lot going on in Munich. You know how tired that man was to come back and find out that Al Davis had strong-armed his team from him while he was gone?
Search The Right Time with Bomani Jones to listen.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying to
standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Stocks are slumping on concern. The rally was overdone. S&P 500 index pulling back from the highest level in 3 months right now. The S&P is down 20. That is a drop of 0.6%. The Dow is down 71, lower by 0.3%. NASDAQ down 90, a drop there of 0.9%. So with 13 minutes to go ahead of the close, stocks lower across the board. The 10-year down 20, 30 seconds. The yield now 0.81%. Gold is up 1%, $17.15 the ounce, while West Texas Intermediate crude oil down 0.4%, $37.14 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home? Honey, please, I'll do the driving. Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
What's the question? It drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
All right, it's time for the Drive to the Close. Delighted to have back with us. It's been too long. Ann Milletti, head of active equity, easy for me to say, at Wells Fargo Asset Management. They look after about $518 billion. That's $500 billion, Carol Masser. She joins us on the phone.
Good math there, Jason Kelly.
You.
Nicely done.
That's why, I have no business really talking about any of this stuff. But Ann Milletti does. She joins us on the phone from Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. So, Ann, it's really nice to have you with us. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing okay. I mean, it's been we were putting together our weekend show earlier today, and I think, candidly, just revisiting all the conversations we've had this week, I don't want to speak for Carol, but I will. It's heavy. It's very really heavy. I think what we're all going through, and I do wonder, we've spent a lot of time with you over the years, and I feel like you are a person who is acutely aware of others. I know you're an active volunteer and, someone who really brings their own experience to bear on all this. And I do wonder what you think in a time like this in your community and as you're talking to your family and others.
Thank you for asking. And I do feel like I have to give a special shout out to all of my friends and people in New York. you all have been hit so hard over the last few months with really three crises, and it's been the healthcare crisis and an economic crisis, and certainly now a social crisis. But as I focus so much on the markets, I do think it's hard to ignore the pain that's going on and taking place in all of the communities that I live in. And while I live in the Midwest, we can't escape our own communities. Even in the Midwest, don't escape the pain that happens when we see tragedies like we saw in Minneapolis. But we're all impacted by it. And I think at Wells Fargo, I'm lucky enough to work for a company that really does push its employees to dedicate time in their communities. And as a company, we've volunteered just under 2 million hours to projects in our communities. And the foundation has, put grants aside to focus specifically in communities. But I personally have been involved in an organization called Secure Futures, and it's really been one that focuses on financial literacy. Mostly important to me is that it focuses at a young age, and it's with high school kids. And when you touch people at a young age and tell them both the pros and cons of how to deal with finances, why you may not want to go into a check cashing store, trying to teach them from maybe your own personal mistakes you made when you were young, but also the mistakes of others. And despite where I am today, I've lived through my own challenges in life, and they're not the same as some of the students I've talked to. But I think by sharing our own experiences, that's something that kids can relate to. And no one teaches you in high school what a credit score means and why you shouldn't go into a check cashing store. And many of the students, believe that banks are for rich people and that they were unattainable, that they couldn't go into them. And so teaching financial literacy is something that can unlock power in students at a young age and something that can help them more for the future. It's a small thing, and it is just a small difference that I think I can make. But if it's one person doing one thing, hopefully we have many other volunteers. As I said earlier, it's not just me. It's actions. I know actions speak louder than words, and I hope we're all doing some of that as business leaders in our communities to make a difference.
And I do wonder, I think you bring up a good point, and I think education, more equal education for everyone will provide more equal access to, becoming part of the system, is really important. But, Ann, I do wonder about specifically, you talk about programs at Wells Fargo, but I do wonder about the role. We keep talking to some great voices throughout the week. Money talks. And whether you're a company that puts money to programs that then do contracts with minority-owned businesses, whether you make sure when you're doing an internship program you bring in minority, interns. I mean, there's ways to really change the system, and I do wonder how the conversation might be changing at Wells Fargo as a result of this week.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just got off the phone earlier this afternoon with the CEO of our asset management business, and we were having a conversation about our hiring processes. And although we've focused for years on diversity, he would still like to make a bigger difference. And
why don't we? Why is it so? Why is it so tough? Why don't we? Because we've all had programs in place for a long time. I'm curious what you guys are observing.
Yeah, I really, Carol, it's been a question that's been presented to me for a long time, and it gets back to I think we all go back to the same pond to fish in, right, for the talent. And if you think about being in finance, you go to some of the same schools to recruit, to some of the same programs to recruit. And when I came into this business, I was lucky to come into it at a time, more than 20 years ago, where a lot of these programs did not exist. You could come in with a liberal arts background and, you were trained by other people that were in this business. And, yes, there still are licensing programs and you still have the CFA and other programs to make sure people are well qualified. You could go to business school after. But I think we can fish in different ponds and bring people in different ways and train them, right? But we'll get more diverse pools if we fish in bigger ponds and different ponds than we just do.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to leave it there. We didn't get to talk about the market, but I dare say we had a more interesting conversation with Ann Milletti. Always thoughtful. We really always enjoy our time with her. Head of Active Equity. I still can't say it. Wells Fargo Asset Management, joining us on the phone from Menominee Falls. And there's a clear line, and I think you were alluding to it, Carol, between what Ann just said in Wisconsin, what we heard from John Hope Bryant earlier in Atlanta, that this is an economic crisis. This is a crisis of poverty. This is a crisis of education to a large extent, and what Ann was just talking about when it comes to financial literacy and just getting young people that basic understanding of candidly how money works, how the system works, really is at the heart of this. So I feel like a theme is emerging here.
Right. They understand how it works, then they can be part of the system, right, and be part of the masses. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Stick around. We've got the closing bell in just a moment.
When you leave out the rumors,
The illness does not come.
this is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Wanna bet football can make you feel nostalgic?
Playing days are over, so...
On the podcast, NFL Alumni Lounge, Charlie Booth sits down with retired NFL legends to talk about their careers, life after football, and everything in between.
Mr. Darren Waller, good to have you.
Yes, sir. It's good to be here.
Dana White, welcome to the Alumni Lounge.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Big member of our NFL alumni family, the CEO of the XFL, Mr. Oliver Luck.
Charlie, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
We're here with the president, Mr. Eric Price. Good to see you.
Search NFL Alumni Lounge on TuneIn to listen.
Let's tune in sports on this day. On this day in 1988, during the French Open women's final, Steffi Graf dominates, winning the shortest women's singles Grand Slam final in just 34 minutes.
So in just 34 minutes of actual playing time, we take another look at match point. Steffi there being congratulated.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games.
Bergeron, he scores!
With game replay on TuneIn, you can listen to every power play, slap shot, and goal of the 2019-2020 season so far.
Suter to Connor to Fiala, he scores!
And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search classic game replays to start listening.
How do you keep track of all your favorite stations and podcasts? Easy. You add them to your favorites list. Just find the audio you want to bookmark and tap the heart icon. Then, whenever you want to browse your favorites, you'll find everything under the Favorites tab.
Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Turned out to be a mixed finish with the Dow higher, S&P, NASDAQ both lower. Folks from Altice USA ringing that closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange as we wrap up trading on this Thursday. But first, this headline from the Bloomberg Professional Service: U.S. virus cases up 1.1%. That is in line with the past week's average. The Dow eking out an 11-point gain, have been lower heading into the close, but again, of just about 0.1%. The S&P down 10 points, a drop there of 0.3%. NASDAQ at the close down 67 points for the NASDAQ Composite Index today, a drop there of 0.7%. 10-year down 21.30 seconds, yield 0.81%. Gold up 1%, 17.16 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude oil down 0.6%, 37.07 a barrel. So again, repeating and recapping here, mixed finish on Wall Street. S&P lower, the Dow eking out a gain. NASDAQ did decline. Stocks falling today on concern the recent rally had gone too far, overshadowed new stimulus measures and encouraging economic data. There is more evidence that America's economy did pull out of its nose, but hardship persists as the coronavirus and civil unrest rack the nation. And with more, here's Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
Jobless claims appear to be moderating, but the grim tally underscores this year's depression-like data. Workers filed nearly 2 million more claims for unemployment benefits last week, the least since March, but sobering nonetheless, bumping the grand total further above the 40 million mark. Meantime, the Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index edged higher for a second week, though it remains 30 points below this year's peak. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
And this headline from the Bloomberg Professional Service: Lufthansa is going to be replaced by Deutsche Wohnen in Germany's DAX index. Again, recapping, turned out to be a mixed day on Wall Street with the Dow eking out a gain today. Little changed with the S&P down 0.3%, lower by 10. The Dow up less than 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pallett. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Wild thing. Think you move me.
I got a few moves I know you'll like.
What can I tell you? Shaken, not stirred.
Just move on toward your destination.
I can make things move without touching them.
Shaking all over.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
A little bit of a wacky day this Thursday in terms of equities bouncing around here. But as you said, Jason, at the top, and I think so rightfully so, a little bit of a reality check, and markets saying once again, well, wait a minute, folks, it's not so great. We got those weekly jobless claims. Yeah, a little bit better, but still millions, out of work. And so a little bit of a bouncing around here. Still about an even split in the S&P 500, 245 names ultimately higher for the day, so gaining some ground, 260 lower. So a little bit of a more of a bearish tone, Jace, but, still.
Yeah. But even still, the Dow essentially ends up 0.05%, as you heard Charlie say. So, interesting to see. Tomorrow will be a fascinating day in many ways because you won't be able to ignore, I don't think, that horrible jobs report. No one's going to be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that many people were out of work. And
there's big disconnect between the financial markets, the equity markets, and I think what's going on in the real world.
Except, and I go back to what Mike McKee said at the top of the show, which is if you do get a clear sense that this is the bottom, that this is bottoming out and that you have some sense that people are getting back to work. I don't know whether we'll really be able to see that, but people smarter than I will break those numbers down.
The other thing I would say is if we hang around the bottom for a while, that can be really ugly and painful. And that's the thing. You know what I mean? If these numbers...
Hang around the bottom from a jobless claims perspective, because we're nowhere near the bottom from an equity perspective.
Or from an economic perspective. Yes. That's what I mean. In terms of the economic news, if that stays around or hovers along the bottom for a while or is a bit anemic in terms of growth, that could be really problematic. So, questions out there. What do you want to look at?
Yeah, I want to look at a few names. I mean, one that certainly helped stabilize the market a little bit was the airline industry. And I think American really caught people by surprise, talking about demand taking them by surprise when it comes to July bookings, and saying that they're going to up their capacity by 74%, I believe. And that's owing to people saying, yeah, I'm going to fly. I'd like to get on a plane. You sort of wonder whether people over the last couple weeks, and I think it's a little harder for us to get our heads around here in the tri-state area, this notion of, I'm going to get on a plane for summer vacation. Before the summer's over, I'm going to take a trip. And I'm going to go ahead and do it in July. Yeah. So let's see how that goes. But that served to take every one of the major air carriers higher. Those were, three of your biggest gainers in the entire index.
Yeah, exactly. The busiest days next month for American will have about 4,000 flights, up from 2,000 in June, according to American's senior VP of Network Strategy. July figure, Jason, that's equivalent to 40% of capacity a year earlier, and compares with 30% in June. So, listen, it's the trend line going in the direction they want to see it. And if people feel comfortable and people come back from flights and say, we're fine, and they don't have any problems,
that's exactly right.
You're going to see more people flying.
That's a really good point. I mean, it's also fair to keep in mind that if you said to someone last July, hey, by the way, air traffic next July is going to be down 60%, they would say, wait, what? It doesn't even make sense.
Who are you?
Yeah. Who are, what's going to be happening?
What planet are you on?
What's going to be happening in the world? And then you'd be like, have a seat. We talk about some things in terms of what June and July 2020 are going to look like.
I need to have you examined. While you pull up the VIX, I'm just going to do a quick check on Zoom Info, our IPO of the day. It was up as much as 90% at its highs, closing the still up to 62%, closing the day at $34 a share after an IPO of 21. So not too shabby.
Not too shabby at all. And if you missed our conversation with the CEO, closing at 25.71. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Where are you? Well done!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a practice. Wilson.
Open up the door, it's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson. Jinx.
Dave
You owe me
Wilson.
something.
Back, I owe you something? No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's what you do when you have Jinx.
You have Coke.
Dave Wilson, Duluth Holdings is your stock of the day. Ticker is DLTH.
Right, we're talking about the owner of workwear and outdoor clothing maker Duluth Trading. Now, the holding company went public in 2015. The ticker is DLTH, as you mentioned. The shares set a record in November 2016 and came close to the peak in September 2018. Then Duluth Holdings took a tumble. The shares set a record low in March after plummeting 92% from their 2018 high. Some disappointing earnings reports contributed to that decline. Duluth Holdings made out better with fiscal first quarter results that came out today. While the company's loss doubled from a year ago, it was in line with analysts' average estimate in a Bloomberg survey. And sales fell less than projected as online and catalog revenue rose 32%. Now, the company said all but 4 of its 62 stores were at least partially open as of today. So it's getting back to business after having to shut down because of the coronavirus pandemic. And the report sent Duluth Holdings shares up as much as 25.5%. They pulled back a bit, yet they closed with a gain of 20.7%, and that was the biggest for the stock in 6 months.
There's some Father's Day sales going on right now.
I like Duluth Trading.
My husband loves their T-shirts.
Yeah. sort of rugged. Makes me feel sort of rugged when I put their stuff on. I'm a little more rugged than I am.
It's like a lumberjack?
Like sitting here in my like little Viore t-shirt and my Everlane jeans. Like Duluth trading just makes me feel like I want to go lift something.
Oh my God.
Nothing.
Dave Wilson, we've got nothing for him, right?
We got nothing. Unless he likes angry beavers. I mean, that's their unofficial mascot. And you know how they came up with that? They did an ad for their fire hose work pants and said they were, quote, tougher than an angry beaver's teeth.
Yikes. Okay.
There's a marketing campaign.
Just going to let that one sit there. Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Let's get some world and national headlines now. Ed Baxter has those. Hey, Ed.
All right, Jason, it's the first time in a long time I've heard you get crickets. Crickets. Okay.
Well done.
In Minneapolis, the memorial services have wound down now for George Floyd. Memorial services in many cities. In Minneapolis, family attorney Benjamin Crump.
Was that other pandemic that we're far too familiar with in America, that pandemic of racism and discrimination.
Yeah, there were shouts of anger there, along with words of peace moving forward. The Trump team says it expects the next COVID-19 stimulus package to be up to $1 trillion, although House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says everything is being blocked right now in the Senate.
Is the virus taking a pause? Is unemployment taking a pause? Is hunger taking a pause? Is a need for rent taking a pause?
Meanwhile, the Trump administration is trying to explain the church photo op. Attorney General William Barr says, he's looking for a bus to crawl under. He said he was in charge of clearing a perimeter around the White House.
I did not know that he was going to do that until later in the day, after our plans were well underway to move the perimeter.
Mr. Trump is catching widespread criticism for it. Latest polling numbers are not favorable. He has summoned his campaign advisors to the White House. No, D.C. is lifting the curfew tonight. New York, some good news.
We will rebuild and we will restart. And so Monday, June 8th, Phase 1 begins.
Yeah, that's curbside picket. He says hopes for Phase 2 by July. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter.
The markets. No, you can't just run screaming from the room.
A lot of economists are just throwing up their hands and saying, we don't know.
But you don't have to manage this alone.
What are you looking at to give you some sort of compass through this period?
Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
What is your early read as to the scope and scale of this plan?
Bloomberg Markets. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance are proud to present a Boston Pop salute to our heroes. This Independence Day, the fireworks won't take place, but the orchestra's 4th of July tradition will continue. The program will feature guest artists and new music paying tribute to the heroes of the current health crisis and honoring the memories of those we have lost. Watch and listen July 4th starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Bloomberg Television and right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance. Say hi, guys. When I adopted them, I discovered that they both have incredible personalities. Chance's sole purpose in life is to love and to be loved. Frankie is a little bit of a scoundrel and always entertaining. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
You're living in a world built...
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like discovering that the box of chocolates has a whole other layer underneath? Or scoring extra poppadoms with your takeaway? Or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage? Yeah, that moment. feels good, right? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Hi, I'm Dan from NatWest Manchester branch. We know life's right now, but if coronavirus has affected your finances, we're doing our best to make things easier. If you're a personal customer, you can request a 3-month payment break if you're struggling with your mortgage, loan or credit card. Or if you need help with an existing arranged overdraft, you could get £500 interest-free for 3 months. Remember, every one of us is here to support you. There are lots of ways we could help. Search NatWest Coronavirus.
Eligibility and conditions apply to payment breaks. Overdraft up to your agreed limit if lower than £500.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids. Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
shipping footballs,
Fruit trees
and dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more, back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone,
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There's going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
10, rise to the 5, touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Let's begin with After the Bell earnings news. First of all, Gap says it will not provide a fiscal year sales and earnings outlook, says it's also not providing comparable sales results for the quarter, and it has undertaken a strategic review of its real estate portfolio. Gap shares, they're tumbling now by 3%. Slack, meanwhile, is withdrawing its 2021 guidance for calculated billings. Slack, ticker WORK, its shares down now by 13%. Turned out to be a mixed day on Wall Street. A lot of concern about just how far this rally has come in recent sessions. S&P snapping a 4-day winning streak, down today by 10 points, a drop there of 0.3%. The Dow up 11, a gain of less than 0.1%. NASDAQ down 67, a drop there of 0.7%. 10-year down 21.30 seconds with a yield of 0.81%. Gold up 0.9%, 17.14 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude higher, little change right now, up 1 cent, 37.31 a barrel. Recapping equity mixed. S&P down 10, a drop there of 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Well, one of the stories that certainly we've been following here at Bloomberg, and it's on the Bloomberg terminal, President Trump's protest crisis really deepening, and he's gotten some pretty harsh rebukes from current and former defense chiefs. Let's get into that story. Bloomberg News White House correspondent Josh Wingrove, he's on the phone from Ottawa. Josh, it's pretty wild to see Mr. Mattis, to also see the current defense secretary speak out against the president. And I feel like you don't often see this.
Yeah, and I it even goes a little more broadly. We had sort of a conspicuous letter issued by General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, on Monday. Tomorrow, John Kelly, former chief of staff, is going to speak with Anthony Scaramucci, Trump's former communications director. However, briefly, Scaramucci is a noted critic now of the president. So you see this sort of swell of pushback, in particular from the military community, the military ranks, to, broadly, I guess, the response to this, but in particular, two things. The president's walk to the church on Monday, which was, of course, preceded by authorities using smoke and tear gas type, pepper spray type material to clear the park, and Trump's ongoing threat to send in some sort of troops or enforcement over potentially the wishes of governors to quell protests. And in particular, this week he said New York City is a candidate for that. So that's where the pushback is coming from. And you're right, it is unusual. We really don't see that all too much from the sort of ex-ranks of President Trump's own officials, his own former cabinet ministers.
Getting a lot of firsts, it feels like.
Yeah, I'm going to need a bigger spreadsheet, I think, here.
We do love our superlatives here at Bloomberg. Well, and Josh, so widen the aperture a little bit to include some of the response from Capitol Hill, because I feel like, especially on the Republican side of the Senate, they're now confronting some of this criticism and being, I don't know if force is the right way, but certainly having to answer some questions about this. What are you hearing that's notable from that part of the government?
Yeah, I mean, the big takeaway today was Senator Murkowski, the Republican from Alaska, saying that she agrees with what General Mattis wrote, but then now she's unsure whether to even support the president. I think that raised a lot of eyebrows. It's also a little puzzling, if you can agree with General Mattis or not. But General Mattis effectively called the president a threat to the Constitution.
Yeah.
So if Senator Murkowski agrees with that, but is still on the fence of whether she supports him or not, that's a bit of an unusual position to me. Other senators have criticized the president, including Senator Sass, Senator Tim Scott, who's the only black Republican senator, whereas others, like Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, have said that they didn't see what General Mattis said, which, I leave it to you whether to believe or not.
I love it when they say, I've been super busy. I just do not. I'm not quite sure what.
I've not looked at a television.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it Stephen
was that in a newspaper?
Was it Stephen Colbert had at the beginning of his show last night of, everybody, a reporter, I think over at MSNBC,
Casey
asking.
Hunt, I believe.
Casey,
yeah.
right?
Casey
Like asked.
Hunt, yes.
Right. I mean, I don't know. What is going on in Congress?
I mean, look, for a lot of these folks, they would get primaried. Some of them are still sort of in that window if it's their sort of cycle, if they go against the president. But other ones are in trouble. And, I think Senator Gardner in Colorado, Susan Collins, Martha McSally, these are senators widely believed to be at fairly substantial risk of losing their seats this year. And if you're them, you can't win without Trump supporters. You can't be at war with the president as a Republican on the ballot in 2020. But you're also trapped kind of, if you're too Trumpy, you might scare off moderates, in particular in some of those purple states. So I think that's why we're seeing some of those really sit on the fence. But as I say, on this, believe it or not, more than usual have spoken out against the president. I only say that because the number is usually 0.
Right. And shifting slightly here, you and your colleagues, Josh, reporting on a meeting that was predicted to be somewhat tense with the president and his campaign advisors at the White House today. And it seemed like that's stemming directly from some poll numbers that are coming through that the president and his team aren't happy with. Tell us what we know about that.
Yeah, it sounds like this is a meeting with very senior officials, including Brad Parscale, Jerry Kushner, Bill Stepien, who just got promoted. And essentially, it's not looking good. The implication is that the same polls they're seeing privately are the ones we're seeing publicly, which is that the joint impact, the double whammy of the ongoing pandemic, as well as the death of George Floyd and the subsequent protests and the president's sort of response to that, have really taken a toll on his numbers, both nationally and in particular in those swing states. So Republicans have always been not too worried about trailing Biden nationally. They're fine if Biden runs up the score in California and New York, but they're looking to be a little frightened by what they're seeing in those more swing state polls. And we've seen some polls, for instance, saying Ohio might even be in play and Texas might even be within the margin of error. If that's the scenario, then things are not looking up for the Trump campaign right now.
Just 30 seconds, though. Is it still too early or no? This is significant.
Oh, gosh, of course, yes, still way too early.
Okay.
way too early. But, we'll see a lot more as things open up. I think there are questions about how Vice President Biden will do on the campaign trail, of course, whether President Trump can get his rallies, which, of course, draw his very fervent supporters out. But we'll see. I mean, I don't think Biden is scoffing at his position right now.
Yeah, well, we don't even know where the various conventions are going to be at this point, especially the Republican convention. All right, Josh Wingrove, thank you so much, White House correspondent for Bloomberg, joining us on the phone. Coming up, we're going to break down Broadcom earnings with Dan Morgan from Synovus.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. It was a sloppy day on Wall Street with stocks ending mixed to lower. Investors worried that the market's four-session winning streak had been overdone. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 12, the S&P 500 lost 11, the Nasdaq fell 67. The job destruction from the COVID-19 pandemic continues, but it slowed last week with the government reporting 1.9 million jobless claims filed. The government's May employment report is due tomorrow. Gap is being sued for refusing to pay rent for stores temporarily closed during the pandemic. Simon Property Group says it's owed 3 months' rent, totaling nearly $66 million. Gap has nearly 400 stores in Simon malls. The Rollins Pest Control Company may be for sale. Sources say Rollins is exploring its options and could decide not to sell. Rollins serves more than 2 million customers globally through its Orkin and other brands. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You know Karen by simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now. She'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster. Ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Market upheavals.
The narrative is driven by uncertainty about the virus.
Political reversals.
It's not clear that some of the Republicans up on the Hill are agreed with the Republican White House.
Economic shifts.
The macro clearly being driven by the coronavirus outbreak.
Everything seems to be in motion.
Will it also mean a global recession in your view now?
But here, you're on solid ground.
Looking forward to guiding you through all of this.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The world's
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. Staying alert means you must stay at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit contact with others. Keep your distance if you go out. And wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
At Asda, we're helping you shop safely by keeping our stores clean and limiting customer numbers so you can keep 2 meters apart. With our Scan and Go mobile app, you can reduce contact at the till too. Asda, we're all in this together. Subject to availability. Mobile data charges may apply.
Hey y'all, we're taking the Marty Party to a whole new level with the Marty Smith's America podcast with Gerald McCoy.
I truly believe that Carolina made a mistake letting Cam go. This is not a personal shot at Teddy Bridgewater. This could have been Andy Dalton. This could have been whoever they brought in. Cam has so much left. Somebody's really getting a great one, man. And I don't think people really understand what they're getting.
Search Marty Smith America to listen. Want to relive the glory of college football?
Pulls over a man into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship featuring Clemson and LSU.
There are going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
Plays to the 5! Touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free.
Where do sports, culture, and basketball nostalgia collide? On their podcast, Knuckleheads, NBA veterans Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles sit down with athletes, musicians, and entertainers to get brutally honest, totally conversations about everything from current events to untold stories from the golden era of sports.
O'Neal. You know that, right? I tried to tip dunk all the free throw line one time.
Search Knuckleheads on TuneIn to listen.
How do you keep track of all your favorite stations and podcasts? Easy. You add them to your favorites list. Just find the audio you want to bookmark and tap the heart icon. Then, whenever you want to browse your favorites, you'll find everything under the Favorites tab.
Ready for some straight talk on what's happening in the MLB? On the Barstool Sports Podcast starting 9, Dallas Braden and Jared Carabas cut through the BS to break down the league the way they really see it.
Yeah, we're continuing our little mini-series of college baseball coaches in addition to bringing you major league players from throughout the league. If you've been listening to Starting 9 for some time now, you know that we've had a big leaguer on every single episode for probably 2 years now.
Search Starting 9 on TuneIn to listen.
Looking for your daily fix of NFL news and analysis?
In that. So we had to blow it up and do Super Bowl predictions instead.
Look no further than the Pick 6 podcast, where CBS sports writer Will Brinson gets you up to speed with what's trending in the NFL that day, so that you're always in the know.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing of Brinson's methodology for predictions. When he gets mad at people for predicting good teams are going to win the Super Bowl, good players are going to win major awards. That's how you wind up.
Search Pick 6 on TuneIn to listen. Live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, coming up, we're going to dig into one of those companies that really tells us a lot about what's going on in the world of technology. We're talking about Broadcom. We're talking about our buddy Dan Morgan.
Yeah, waiting for their earnings to cross the Bloomberg terminal, so we'll bring them out as soon as they are. Did they cross? Oh, they did cross. Sorry, I brought it.
ABGO.
Yeah, no, I know the ticker. I came up with the gap, which also crossed. Sorry about that. We'll get those numbers and the breakdown in the quarter in just a moment. Let's get back to Charlie Pellet.
All right, lots going on after the bell. Here are some headlines that you need to know about. First of all, Schwab holders have approved the purchase of TD Ameritrade. Schwab shares down 0.2% today. GameStop's head of transformation, again, to be clear, the head of transformation, Daniel Kaufman, has resigned. GameStop shares down 0.2%. This stock, by the way, is down 26% so far this year. Gap among the headlines out, it reported a loss per share for the first quarter of $2.51 versus earnings estimates of 60 cents. Gap says it will not be providing a fiscal year sales or earnings outlook, is not providing comp sales results for the quarter. Gap shares after hours down now by 6%. Slack is withdrawing its 2021 guidance for calculated billings. Lower right now after hours. Slack shares down by 16%. Turned out to be a mixed day on Wall Street today, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average eking out a gain, while both the S&P 500 index and NASDAQ declined. A lot of concern that maybe this rally is overdone, hence the sell-off today. We had the Dow Jones Industrial Average advancing by 11 points, up less than 0.1%. The S&P down 10, down 0.3. NASDAQ down 67. That was a drop there of 0.7%. 10-year down 22.30 seconds with a yield of 0.81%. As for the overall market backdrop, David Libovitz is global market strategist at J.P. Morgan Investment Management.
When we look at where
the market is today, clearly things have moved very far, very fast. There is room for markets to continue climbing higher, but I think now is probably the wrong time to materially change your asset allocation, right? Maybe a month and a half ago, this was the conversation to have, but I think that the risk-reward has continued to deteriorate here, and that makes me a little bit nervous about the direction of travel for markets in the coming weeks.
Apple CEO Tim Cook is calling on his company, quote, to do more to fight systemic injustices and racial inequality in an open letter responding to the protests sweeping the United States this week. Also, Vail Resort CEO Rob Katz says his company and his industry haven't done enough to improve racial diversity in skiing, calling his own lack of action, quote, a personal failing. Today, we did see shares of Apple declining by 0.6%. As for Vail Resort, ticker MTN as in Mountain, up today by 2.5%. Recapping, turned out to be a mixed day for the U.S. equity market today. S&P 500 index down 10, a drop of 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Well, let's move to Broadcom now. And our buddy Dan Morgan from Synovus joining us from Atlanta. The numbers came out just a little while ago. So, Dan, looks like a beat on both profit and revenue. Stock's off just a touch. Tell us what you see as you dig through the numbers briefly.
Well, hi, Jason. Hi, Carol. Yeah, you're right. If you look at the top and bottom line, it looks like a beat. It looks like their third quarter guidance, which was basically $5.75 billion in revenues, plus or minus $150 million. That was pretty much in line with consensus. Some things that kind of stood out. The net income was actually better than expected, $563 million. And something that a lot of people don't talk about, free cash flow, $3.07 billion. Consensus was about 2.46. So those are some things that kind of stood out from the top line. If we look at the Semiconductor Solutions Group, remember, Jason, that about 70% of their business comes from chips, about 30% from software. That was about flat, right? Down 2%, $4.027 billion. And then their software group, which is kind of the old Computer Associates and Symantec, you remember those names.
Good Lord.
$1.72 billion, up 21%. And that was actually a beat. And that's a segment that everybody has been relatively negative on. I think a lot of people are still scratching their head trying to figure out why Broadcom bought Symantec. So, but anyway, that was a little bit upside. But yeah, it's interesting. The stock off a little bit, even though they had a good number and their guidance going in third quarter was relatively strong.
We highlighted, Dan, a headline from the Broadcom CEO warning of, quote, substantial reset in wireless. Is that the move to 5G he's talking about? And then there's going to be, some disruption in terms of how that impacts companies and numbers?
Well, you're right, Carol. What's really interesting is that 5G has been highly dependent on the iPhone, right, with their introduction. We know that Samsung already has their 5G entrant. And if you think about the infrastructure build-out that a lot of these carriers have to engage in, a lot of it's based on, usage, right? So a lot of them have been a little bit kind of holding back, not holding back, but kind of utilizing their 4G infrastructure, not quite building out towards 100% 5G. And they're all kind of waiting for the iPhone to come out and kind of push people. So I think that's probably what they're focusing on. Because, Carol, if you look at their revenue mix, about 25% of it comes from smartphones. And they won't tell you this, but Apple is a huge customer of theirs. So not surprising they would make a comment in terms of timing of the 5G.
This is when I go to the SPLC function on the Bloomberg.
It's your favorite function.
I love the supply chain
analysis. You're going to get an SPLC tattoo.
Can I get an SPLC t-shirt?
SPLC Go.
No, you're right. I mean, it's huge. It just reminds you of, and you're right, I pull it up, and there's Apple number one. Our analysis here says about 20%, but yeah, right in the ballpark. I mean, this is a huge, huge player for them.
So, Dan, I got to ask you before we let you go, only about a minute left. How are things down in Atlanta? We've been talking a ton about Atlanta this week, and I just wonder, from your perspective, I think you generally live in kind of the Buckhead area, just a little north of downtown. How's it feeling down there?
Yeah, I mean, kind of getting away from the Broadcom numbers. Yeah, I mean, Atlanta's, company. Here I am, right? A state that has moved a little bit more aggressively than probably other parts of the country in terms of opening things up. So we're starting to get restaurants open and so forth. And one of the major benefits, which you guys can relate to, and Jason can because he's from the Atlanta area, is that you can actually drive on the freeways.
Yeah.
Around 5:30. It's almost like some kind of Pleasureville when you get around. So, but I'm sure the traffic will come back when people start getting back to work. But things are starting to unthaw here a lot quicker than they are, let's say, New York or California.
All right. Well, Dan, we really appreciate the insights, as always, about everything going on in our world. Dan Morgan taking a look at Broadcom for us. Those numbers crossing. Stock's a little bit off, but, a little bit of a bullish, at least, posture from the company there, Carol, which makes you think that, maybe as we hear from other electronics companies, that things could improve a bit.
That last question, I thought it was going to be Beatles or the Stones. That's what I thought. I've got a little poll going on Twitter.
Do you? And how's it trending?
You're just going to have to wait when Dave doesn't come back anymore, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you know in a little bit.
Till tomorrow? Yeah, I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow.
It is
maybe
a 2 day.
end of the
I'm
show.
giving everybody 2 days. Our end of the show.
2 days? That's a long poll. All right. Let's get back to Ed Baxter in San Francisco. He's got a world mashup on. Hey, Ed.
All right, Jason. Hey, first of three personal memorial services for George Floyd is over. This one, Minneapolis. His brother, Rodney Floyd, really a message of love.
I appreciate the love of everyone in here in the state of Minneapolis. Y'all adopted my brother and showed him so much love, and we feel that love in your city.
And there are services in major cities around the country today. Some welcome news. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio says Phase 1 reopening will get on the Big Apple on Monday.
And at this moment, Phase 2 could start as early as the beginning of July.
And that would be outdoor dining in some form of normalcy. In New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy says non-essential retail can start opening June 12th. Stores limited to 50% capacity and customers required to wear face coverings. President Donald Trump has summoned his campaign team to the White House in the wake of sinking polling numbers following his church photo op walk this week. The one that Attorney General William Barr says partially maybe involves him. He says he ordered the moving of the perimeter around the White House without knowing what the president had planned.
So there was no correlation between our tactical plan of moving the perimeter out by one block and the president's going over to the church.
This brings some concern from D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
I'm also concerned that some of the hardening that they're doing may be not just temporary. And so we would also have to push back from that.
Yeah, meanwhile, the Trump administration says it plans up to $1 trillion stimulus package next time around. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
What's the true value of your custodial relationship? Ben Harrison of BNY Mellon's Pershing explains.
As sophisticated investors demand more from their advisors, advisory firms, in turn, need to rely on their custodian to help them grow their complex businesses. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, supporting the rapid growth of RIAs is our number one priority. We understand what it means to deliver true value to our clients who are looking for a custodian that is aligned with their best interest and delivers high-value solutions, all in an open architecture environment with flexibility, choice, and transparency. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength, resiliency, and high-touch service that BNY Mellon Pershing provides. When you work with Pershing, we put your business first. Can your custodian say that?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Pershing Advisor Solutions, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC.
It's a stock market driver.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. Staying alert means you must stay at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit contact with others. Keep your distance if you go out. And wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like discovering that the box of chocolates has a whole other layer underneath? Or scoring extra poppadoms with your takeaway? Or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage? Yeah, that moment feels good, right? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Where do sports, culture, and basketball nostalgia collide? On their podcast, Knuckleheads, NBA veterans Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles sit down with athletes, musicians, and entertainers to get brutally honest, totally unguarded conversations about everything from current events to untold stories from the golden era of sports.
O'Neal. You know that, right? I tried to tip dunk all the free throw line one time.
Search Knuckleheads on TuneIn to listen. Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events. To standout stations and podcasts, stay in touch with TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
With millions of podcasts dropping new episodes all the time, how do you keep up with all your favorites? TuneIn makes it easy. Simply head to the home screen and find your new episode section to see the latest additions.
Ready for some straight talk on what's happening in the MLB? On the Barstool Sports Podcast starting 9, Dallas Braden and Jared Carrabis cut through the BS to break down the league the way they really see it.
Yeah, we're continuing our little mini-series of college baseball coaches in addition to bringing you major league players from throughout the league. If you've been listening to Starting 9 for some time now, you know that we've had a big leaguer on every single episode for probably 2 years now.
Search Starting 9 on TuneIn to listen.
Ready for a one-of-a-kind look at the NFL? On the PFF NFL podcast, Steve Palazzolo and Sam Munson interpret the unique stats of Pro Football Focus to analyze the league, uncover secret superstars, and discuss which teams to watch out for in the next Super Bowl.
Let's talk some football. Let's do it, Steve. All sorts of stuff. We're going to do most improved defenses around the NFL. Solomon Wilcots, our very own. He went into some detail over at PFF.com. Most improved defenses around the
Search PFF NFL on TuneIn to listen. Hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Slack Technologies, based in San Francisco. says it is withdrawing its guidance for the full fiscal year 2021 calculated billings. Shares down 15% in extended trading. First quarter revenue did come in at $201.7 million, beating estimates of $187 million. Gap shares are declining after reporting a steep drop in quarterly sales as the coronavirus pandemic shifted consumer spending away from apparel and office attire. Shares down now by 5.5%. Mixed Thursday on Wall Street. A lot of concern about maybe the rallies come too far, too fast. S&P dropping for the first time in 4 sessions today. Down 10 points, a drop there of 0.3%. The Dow up 11, higher by 0.1%. NASDAQ down 67, a drop of 0.7%. 10-year yield 0.82%. Gold up 0.8% at $17.13 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 0.1%, $37.33 a barrel. So again, it was the Dow snapping a 4-day winning streak, lower today by 10 points, down 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week, and if we have a theme for this back half of the week, it is understanding the labor market, understanding where jobs are, where they aren't, where they may be in the future. The perfect person to talk about all of that is Irina Novoselsky. She is the CEO of Career Builder, joining us on the phone. Irina, really nice to have you with Carol and myself.
Thank you. Good to be on.
So what's the most important thing we need to know about the labor market right now? We're getting a lot of data inputs, but you're seeing a whole other set of data, or you're seeing all of that data, but also some of your own. Help us understand, I think, especially at this moment where we're thinking about economic inequality, we're thinking about different opportunities and different effects that these various crises are having on folks. What's the most important thing we need to know?
I would say there's a few things that we should keep in mind. From a data perspective, like you mentioned, it's hard to think that only below 2 million in claimless jobs getting added is a good sign, but it actually is a good sign. It's the first time since over the past 11 weeks that